guys, today I'm going to do a tutorial on how I crocheted these super cute Soot Sprite pins to put on my bag. Obviously you don't have to make it into a pin, you can just make it as a cute little guy. But yeah, to make these, or to make them into pins I guess, I crocheted around bottle caps. So obviously to make it you need bottle caps. You can use big ones, small ones, whatever. For example, these are like milk ones, so they're pretty big, and I've made these into pins before. I don't have a Soot Sprite one, but I made this Totoro one. But for these sized ones I want them to be small and cute, so I'm using these from like Ciders. You can see there's a Corona one there. This is the size that I think works better for the Soot Sprites, just because they're tiny and cute. But you can use any size bottle cap, any size lid. They can be thicker. For example, I've got these ones from Water, and they're quite thick. I'll show you how to do it for any size, but this is the size that I like the best. And then obviously you will need embroidery thread. This is what I'm crocheting with. I'm crocheting with embroidery thread. This is my black. But like I said, if you're crocheting around a bigger top, you can use just thin yarn. Yeah, you can just use thin yarn, but for this small size, I'd recommend using embroidery thread. Doesn't matter the exact size. Like I said, I'm going to show you how to do it, and it should work for any size top, any size cap. But if you want the small details, like you can see here the stars and the eyes, if you want those small details, I would recommend using thinner thread. So you can see, even compared to the black, the white I have is a lot thinner. And then with this thread I am using a 0.75mm hook. This is actually slightly too small for the black. It's quite hard to work with because it's actually a bit small. But yeah, use whatever size hook fits with your thread or your yarn. Obviously, smaller hook with a smaller yarn, you will get more detail. But like I said, it should work with any. So to make this Soot Sprite, obviously you'll need black, you'll need white for the eyes, and then if you want to add a star, you can use whatever colour you want. I'm going to use yellow in this example. You'll need scissors to cut, you'll need a needle to sew everything together, and then to turn it into a pin back, to turn it into a pin, you are going to need some sort of cardboard or stuffing material to put inside the lid, because if you don't, it becomes kind of like indented. Let me find the example that I have. Here you go. This one I didn't stuff the back of the lid, and you can see as I push my finger in here, it sinks in. And that just makes it harder to attach to a bag or a jacket or whatever, because once the pin's on here and you try and push it into the fabric, it's going to go down. So I would recommend stuffing this with basically just trace around it on cardboard, cut it out, and maybe put a few pieces of cardboard inside it, because then you can see it's a lot more solid. And then obviously you'll need pins. These I just got from Vinted. Obviously there's the pin back, and then the actual pin. I was going to have to see, but like here, here's one. Oh, it's stuck in the, that's annoying. Anyway, you can see this pins here is stuck in it, but you'll basically super glue that to the back, and then you have a pin. You don't have to obviously make it into a pin, you can just make it into just a little cute guy if you want. But yeah, I think that's everything you need. So yeah, let's get started. I'll leave one of them here just because I think it's cute. Sorry, I'm filming this on the back of a notepad because my desk is black, and if I filmed just on my desk you wouldn't be able to see anything because the yarn is black. So yeah, get your hook, get your black. This is what we're going to start with. And to begin with, you're going to make a magic ring. I do a double magic ring, so I'm going to walk you through how to do a double. just because I think it's more secure than a single usually. But you can do a single, you can do it however way you want, but this is how I do a double. Get your thread, 2 fingers, wrap it once, twice, 3 times, so the end is here. Hook under the first 2, grab the third one, and pull up. Sorry about the awful camera quality. I hope you can still kind of see what I'm doing. So you should have this loop here, and then to secure it, just chain 1 like so, and that will be secured. And then into whatever magic ring you're making, you're going to do 6 singles. I like to do an extra chain here, just because when you're going back to the start of the 6 singles, it makes it a bit easier to see the stitches, but you don't have to. So I would do a chain 1 first, but you don't have to, and then work 6 singles into the original magic ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Like I said, this hook is actually a bit too small for the black, so if I'm struggling a bit, that's why. But I've used it for all of them so far, so I'm not going to stop now, because otherwise they'll be slightly different sizes and that will just annoy me. So here you can take out your hook, leave a little loop so it's not going to get in the way. And then the way to close a double magic ring, if you've never done it before, is you pull the tail a little bit, and then you can see this ring is closing and that one is not. So you want to grab the one that's starting to close and pull this one all the way, and that will close the second ring. And if you see, pull it all the way, so there is basically no hole. There'll be a tiny bit of a hole, but it shouldn't matter. Basically until there's no hole left, and then you're left with 1 loop and the tail, and then when you pull the tail, it will close that 1 loop. Like you can see, it's gone, and all you're left with is the tail, the working yarn, and then the loop that obviously your hook is supposed to go into. And that is a double magic ring. Yes, I apologise, it's kind of hard to see, my camera quality is awful, but it should be fine. And then from here, basically what we're going to do is increase in 6s. This is like usually the standard for like amigurumi spheres, circles. You start with 6 in the middle, increase to 12, increase to 18. I'll explain all that as we go. But yeah, we're going to increase in 6s. So obviously to do that, for the second row, we're going to increase to 12, and to do that, we're going to do 6 increases. So, sorry, you won't be able to see this on camera very well, but basically I like to count back to make sure I'm definitely working into the stitch, but work into the first single that you did, and you're just going to do 2 singles into that 1 stitch. That's what an increase is. So 1 single, and then 2 singles like so. That's 1 increase, and then keep doing that 5 more times until you have 6. So that's the second increase. Increase number 3. Increase number 4. Increase number 5. And then finally, increase number 6. Like so. And then you're left with a bigger circle. And then to increase to 18, you're going to do a single in the first stitch, followed by an increase in stitch number 2, and then you're going to repeat that pattern 6 times. So 1 single, 1 increase, 1 single, 1 increase, all the way around until you have 18. Here we go. I skipped ahead until I have 18 because that's boring and no one wants to see that. And then from here, you're going to keep increasing in 6s. So for the next row, you're going to do 2 singles followed by an increase and repeat that 6 times, and that will get you to 24. For me, if I'm using this size yarn, this size hook, and this size bottle cap, I'm going to increase to 24. And the reason for that is you want to increase in rows of 6 until you have basically one row left before the last row. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to increase to 24 here and then show you what I mean. Okay, so here I increased to 24 by doing the pattern that I said, two singles then an increase. And the reason I stopped at 24 is because you get the size of your bottle cap, and if you place this on here, you can see it kind of covers it, but to go down the sides, I'll need to do one more row, so I want to increase to 30. So basically stop until you're one row away from completely covering the top of the bottle cap, because in this last row we're going to do, before we go down the sides, we're going to add the arms. And the reason we do that in this row is so that you're not making arms and then sewing them on and it's a whole thing. You want them to be part of the last row. So stop, run one row before the end, whatever that row may be. You may be on 36 for all I know. It depends how big your bottle cap is, depends what size yarn you're using, but I'm stopping on 24. So yeah, do that. And if you're going more than 24, obviously just keep up the same pattern. So to increase to 30, you do 3 singles followed by an increase. Increase to 36, you do 4 singles followed by an increase. Repeat that pattern going up in 6s until you're one row away from covering it. And here is where we're going to add the arms. So I would, first of all, if you want to add a star, decide which side of the head that you want the star to be on. It can be on, sorry, not the camera, the left side or the right side. I only do one of the two because I like to place the star in this, when we add the ruffles around the edge, there'll be a slight gap kind of thing, and I like to place the star in that gap. So if you want the star to be on the left side, like this one, as we're going to increase to 30 here, you're going to do 1, 2, 3, followed by an increase, and then you're going to do arm number 1. If you want it to be on the right side, you're going to do another 1, 2, 3, then an increase. Because it depends on where the end of the row is. So you can see the end of the row is, the start of the row is here. So obviously the star would be on the left side. If you want the star to be on the right side, you have to do another increase here, and then the star will be here, if that makes sense. It doesn't really matter. I just like to place the star in that position just because it covers up the bit of the start and the end of the row where it's all slightly wonky. It really doesn't matter too much. I don't know why I explained that. Ignore me. It doesn't matter too much. That's just what I like to do. So anyway, do increase as normal for the last row to cover it. So for me, I'm increasing to 30, so I do 1, 2, 3, then an increase, and then we're going to do the first arm. And to do that, all the limbs are done the same, but to do that, you're going to chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then you're going to work a double crochet into the 3rd chain from hook. So this is hard to see because it's black yarn. But you count back 1, 2, work into this 3rd one, the double, like so. Then you chain 1, and then you work back into all of the chains and do slip stitches up the whole arm. So obviously not in this stitch because that's where the double was, but in the next one you just do a slip stitch, and then you just do slip stitches up the rest of the arm, and it should be 8 in total. So I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And as you can see, I'm now back at the start, and I have this chain, and then the double and the chain one at the end makes the little hand or foot. All of the limbs are done the exact same way. Obviously you can make them as long as you want, really, just keep chaining if you want like really dangly legs, but that's what I do. And then in between each of the legs you're going to do the same increase you did before, so increasing to whatever the next multiple of 6 is. So for me, again, that's 30, so I'm doing 1, 2, 3 followed by an increase because that's the pattern. And then you're going to do another limb, so chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then again work back into that the same way, double and then a chain until you have 4 limbs. So as you can see, I now have all 4 limbs, and in between each limb I did 3 singles and an increase. Obviously if you did more rows than me, you may do 4 singles and an increase, it depends what row you're on. But yeah, after all the 4 limbs, basically you're going to get back to the start of the row. So for me, before limb number 1, I just did 3 and then an increase because I wanted the star to be on the left side. So I'm going to do 3 increase and then another 3 increase. If you did 2 3 increases, obviously just do 1. This is where having a stitch marker would have been really helpful. I don't know why I didn't put a stitch marker in. But basically get back to the start of the row, increasing as normal. So for me, I'm going to just keep working and do 1, 2, 3, then an increase, and then one final 1, 2, 3, and increase. So after that row, you should now be being able to cover the entire top of the bottle cap. So if I place that down there, you can see, you can't even see it anymore. It's gone. I would recommend, if you're kind of stuck between doing a number of rows, like one row looks too big or one looks too small, always do the one that looks too big. Always do the one that covers it completely. Like this. You can see, like you can still see the outside of it. It completely covers it, because most bottle caps kind of come out at an angle. So it's better to overshoot and go straight down than it is to undershoot, and you'll be able to see the edge and it's just ugly. So if you're stuck between how many rows to do, always do one more. But still increasing in 6. So I'm at 30 now. I was at 24, I'm now at 30. All of your increases should be at 6, so I'm now at 30 stitches plus 4 little limbs sticking out. And then obviously from here, we are going to, oh, I put my hook in the wrong way. We are going to be going down the side of the bottle cap. And to do that, I'm doing 30 stitches in the back loop only. Obviously do whatever number you have. We're just going to do a whole row of back loop only singles. For me it's 30. So as you can see, these are my stitches, or maybe you can't see because the black yarn is awful, but you're going to put your hook in just the back loop and do a single as normal. So I'm going to do 5 and make my way over to the limb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just hold that up so that you can see that doing it in the back loop only, it bends it over, so you can see there's that right angle there, and this is where the bottle cap will go, and then it will bend over like so. And then once you get to a limb, basically just ignore it. So I'm going to pull it over here to the side and then just keep working in the back loop only. So all the limbs, if I do another 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to the next limb, so that you can see the base is now going the other way, perpendicular, but the limb is still sticking out like so. And yeah, basically work your way all the way around in the back loop. So here I've done the whole row of it, and as you can see there's now a slight indent where you can see the bottle cap will sit. Here is where it will slightly differ depending on what lid you're using. If you're using, for example, the big milk one or this type of one, I'll show you what to do for this type of one. But as you can see on these lids, they have these ridges. I like leaving kind of gaps. Let me show you the best one. Leaving gaps so you can feel the ridges in it, because I just think it's cool. You don't have to do that. That's just, here you go, you can see better on this green one. You don't have to do that. I just think it's cool and it feels nicer, because I kind of like the feeling of the ridges. I don't know why. But basically you want to, depending on what size yarn you're using, if you want to do the same thing like me and leave gaps, you want to add as many rows of 30 or whatever number up until you get to the ridges. So for me, it's just this one row that we did in the back loop only. If you've still got gap before the ridges, do another row of 30, but obviously not in the back loop. From now on, everything is normal again because we've done the bend. So you may need another row of 30 if you're using really tiny thread. For me, just one is enough. If you've got one like this, or you just don't want to leave gaps, basically keep doing rows of 30 until you've covered the side. So just do another row of 30 and then another until you completely cover the side. But if you want to do the gaps like me, this is how I do it. So I'm going to do a slip stitch, and then I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to skip one stitch, so you can see there's one there. I'm going to skip, I would normally go into that one, but I'm skipping it and I'm going into this next one. And I'm doing a half double. Now this may depend on what yarn you're using. Again, if you have kind of tulle ridges, you might want to do a double or even a triple. But for me and this size of yarn, a half double works. And then I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, and do another half double. And then chain 1, skip 1, and do another half double. And you basically do this all the way around, and you can see it makes this the grid with the holes where this will sit, and this takes me to the end. Like I said, if you don't want to do the holes, keep doing rows of 30 or whatever number until you completely cover the whole thing. And like I said before, if you're stuck between a number of rows, like 2 rows is slightly too short but 3 is slightly too long, always go with the slightly too long one. Go with 3, don't go with 2, because trying to stretch it is just really awkward. It's better to accidentally go a bit over than it is to go a bit under. So yeah, and if, like I said, if the half double is slightly too short and it doesn't cover it completely for you, try and do a double or a triple instead. Doesn't matter, this is customizable. Do whatever you need to fit your size bottle cap with your size thread. I think I'm using like 6 like strand thread, if that helps anyone. I don't really know what size it is, but yeah. But basically, if you're doing the same thing as me, keep going. Chain 1, skip 1, half double, all the way around. And once you get back to the start of this row, you do a chain 1 after the last half double you did, and then slip stitch to the second chain, so the middle one, basically. Like so, and then you're going to cut. You don't need to leave that long of a tail, and pull tight. And yeah, you should have this little kind of, I guess, bowl shaped. That's the thing will fit into. It may look like it won't fit because if you leave the gaps, it kind of goes inwards. But I'll show you how to make it fit, basically, because it will fit. But yeah, the reason we cut here is because now it's time to add the ruffles and the face and everything. And obviously if it's already on the bottle cap, it's going to be really hard to sew that on, so don't put it on yet, basically. And yeah, let me show you how to do the ruffles along the outside to make him fluffy. So to do that, you're going to do a slip knot onto your hook. Again, you don't really need to leave that long of a tail, just long enough that you can sew it back in, basically. And then we're going to start at the start of the edge that you did, basically. So when we did in the back loop only, obviously the front loop is left, and we're going to start in that front loop. So let me try and show it to the camera. It's really hard to see because it's with black yarn. Here. Okay, sorry, this is so hard to see. I'll try and put a filter over it so you can see it better. But you can see I've left these front loops only all the way around the outside, and you can see you're going to put your hook into that. This is where it comes in where I was talking about star placement, because once you join the ruffles back to the other side, I like to put the star here so that it covers up where you joined it. And obviously you can do it on that side as well, but that, like I said, that doesn't really matter too much. I don't know why I spent so long explaining it. But basically what you're going to do is slip stitch into that first front loop only, and then you're going to chain 3, 2, 3. And then you're going to slip stitch into the next front loop only, and then slip stitch again. So there's 2 slip stitches in a row, and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch 1 and slip stitch 2, and then chain 3, and you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around. So chain 3, then 2 slip stitches, then chain 3, then 2 slip stitches, etc. all the way around. And as you can see, it makes these bobbly fluffy bits. Like I said, when you reach a limb, and I've just chained 3, make sure the limb is underneath the bobbles. So if I do 2 slip stitches here and here, you can see that the bobble, this bit, is on top of the limb, like so. And yeah, keep doing that pattern all the way around. And then once you do the last chain 3, obviously there'll only be 1 stitch left for you to do a slip stitch into, because we just started with 1, so you won't have room for 2, it'll just be 1. And then again, cut, leave just enough of a tail to sew in, pull tight, and you should have this little bobbly guy with arms and legs. To get ready for doing the face, I like to cut the original tail from the magic ring just a bit shorter because it gets in the way and it annoys me. And then if you get your needle and thread one end of the bobbly row, as we'll call it, basically just stick it through along the edge from where you go from flat to like the perpendicular edge, and then do the same with the other one. Thread and poke through, and then if you kind of turn it inside out, you can get both of these ends. Tie it in a knot and cut it short. When doing all of this, I like to cut it short because the less ends you have, the flatter it'll be. Obviously, if you have a bunch of ends underneath here, you might be able to feel them a bit bumping around and it's kind of annoying. So that's why I like to cut them short. But yeah, this is what you should have so far. And then we will move on to the face. Okay, so once you've got the body ready, I'm going to show you how to do the face. And for that, you'll need white yarn for the eyes, or white thread. The one I'm using is actually not completely white, it's sort of an off-white, it's slightly cream, but it doesn't really matter. But like I said, this should work for any size of thread, any size of hook. I'm just going to show you how I do it. So again, we're going to do a magic ring. I'm doing a double, and then I do the once you secure it, I do the extra chain 1, but again you don't have to, and then you're going to work 6 singles into the magic ring again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then, like last time, close the magic ring as tight as you can so that there's no hole in the center. But for the eyes, it doesn't matter too much because we'll be covering up any holes with black for the pupil anyway. Like so. So you should have a magic ring with 6 singles in it. Now from here, it will depend what size thread you're using. I'm using, my white thread is a lot smaller than my black thread. So I'm going to do another row and I'm going to increase to 12. If your white yarn is the same size as your black, you might only do 6. You might be able to, if you have 6 like this, you might be able to just slip stitch the first one and leave it like that. That might be the correct size for you. If that's the correct size, cut and sew it on. But as you can see, it's a bit too small for me. I want it to be slightly bigger, so I'm going to do 12. And like I said, if you're doing an even bigger bottle cap, or you're using really small thread, you might want to do more rows. You might want to go up to 18, you might want to go up to 24. But increase in 6s, exactly like how we did for the body. You want to go up in 6s because it gets you the best circle. So for me, I am increasing to 12, so I'm going to do 6 increases. So I'm going to do 1 increase, then a second increase, then third, and a fourth, and a fifth, and then finally a 6th increase, so I ended up with 12 stitches. And for me, this is the size I want for an eye. Obviously you can do them whatever size you want, but whatever you get to the size that you want, however many rows you want, you then just slip stitch to the next stitch and then cut. I like to leave this end fairly short, but that's only because the original end from the magic ring is long enough for me to use to sew, so I don't need to leave a long end here. That will just get in the way. But if you have a tiny end from the magic ring, obviously cut this side, leaving long enough for you to sew on, because you need to be able to sew on. So I'm going to show you how I sew it on. So like I said, I use a small end first just to attach it. And to keep the end smooth, I put my needle through the next stitch first, and then I go in. And now I like to have one edge on the kind of second row in from the end, so you can see this row where the bubbles are. I like to go one in, and I like them to be in line with the arms. So I would put my needle here. But like I said, depending on the number of rows you have and wherever you want the eyes, you can place them wherever you want really. This is just what I do. And then because this end is directly from the middle of the circle, I like to put my needle one row in from that. But again, it depends on how big your rows are, what size thread you're using, but that's the placement I like. And then I just go around like so, go up through one stitch and then down through the next one without getting caught on the arms. So up through the next one. Can be a bit hard, especially if you're using thicker thread like me. and then down through the next one, like so. And then you basically keep going all the way around until it's attached. And then once you've gone all the way around, you can see it's fully attached. Turn it inside out, do a knot, so tie the two ends together as tight and as securely as you can, and then cut. And like I said before with the other end, I like to cut pretty close. I mean, you don't have to cut, you can leave them dangling, but I like to cut because once you put the bottle cap in, any extra yarn ends in here are going to leave kind of bumps, and I don't want that. I want it to be as smooth as possible. So yeah, that's how I do the eyes. Obviously the next step is to do the second eye. Here we go. Once you have both eyes attached and tied the same way, it's time for the pupils. By the way, quick tip, if you see when you place it to the side, you can kind of see the thread, like here, that line. If yours are quite obvious and they're annoying you, you could just get a black pen and literally just colour them in. I know a lot of people hate sewing, and the sewing while crocheting is like, you want to crochet, you don't want to sew. So if the sewing's a bit messy, don't worry, you can literally get a pen and fix it and no one will ever know. But yeah, time for the pupil. Obviously you're going to cut a piece of black thread. I don't want to tell you how long to cut it because everyone's are going to be different sizes with different size thread. But always, if you're not sure, always cut a too long a piece because you can always cut it shorter afterwards and it's harder to add more thread. But yeah, this is the way I do the pupils. If your pupils are huge, if you're making a really big one, you can make a pupil by just doing 6 single crochets with black into a magic ring and then also sew that on. But my black thread is thick enough that it's easier for me to embroider them on. So I'm going to show you how I embroider them on. So basically, thread the black, and you want to stick your needle in between, or the way I do it is in between the 2 rows, right at the top. So the direct top hole, you can see here, directly at the top of the eye, in between the 2 rows. That's where I want to pull my black through and then leave enough of a tail that you can tie a knot with it afterwards. And then you want to go back down through the direct opposite hole. So you can see at the bottom here, you want to go down through this one and it makes this line. But then to turn it into like a round pupil, you basically just repeat that as many times as you want. Usually 3 is enough for me. So I'm going to go back through the top again. And then when I go back down the side, I kind of angle the thread so it goes next to the original. So it makes it wider, basically. I got a leg caught. So it makes it wider. Like so, you can already see that is a lot thicker than it was. And then I usually go with a 3rd one on the other side of the eye. Down again. I keep getting it caught on the legs. Very fiddly. Like so. And then you can kind of spread them out if you want using your needle just to make it a little bit bigger. But yeah, that is the size of the pupil that I want. If you want a huge pupil, obviously you can keep going, you can do it as many times as you want. If you want to crochet the pupil, you can do 6 singles into a magic ring. But this is the way that I like to do it. So again, I'm gonna go, I use 1 piece of yarn so you can see it's big so that I don't have to cut and then add another piece because it's just annoying. So I just move over to the next one and do it with the same piece of yarn. So as you can see here, I've come up the bottom. You can start at the bottom or the top, it doesn't matter. And then I go down the top in between the 2 rows, like so. And then you can see it getting thicker when I add the extra threads, when I repeat what I'm doing, basically. So down again. Can be quite stiff because you're going through 2 things rather than 1 because you're going through the eye and the body. So it can be a bit stiff, especially if you're using too small of a hook like me. It makes everything quite stiff to work with. but it should be doable. And then a third one, like so. And then I like to do a little bit of arranging with the needle. But yeah, that's the size of pupil that I like. And then obviously, same thing, turn it the other way, grab both ends, tie them into a knot, and then cut short. But like I said, you don't have to cut short. If you're using really thin thread, you probably don't have to cut short. You can just leave it and tuck it on the inside of the bottle cap. But anyway, yeah, this is how I do the face. And then last but not least, for the detail, is the flower. Obviously, if you don't want to add a flower, you don't have to add a flower. But I think they're cute. So for this, oh, there's a knot. For this, do a magic ring yet again, like this. Hook under, grab the first one like we did before, and then secure it like so. And then to do the flower, you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and slip stitch back into the magic ring, and then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and slip stitch back into the magic ring. And then you're doing that 5 times to make the 5 petals of the flower. So 1, 2, 3, slip stitch, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch, 1, 2, 3, slip stitch, and that is 5. Now from here, you close it again. So pull whichever one gets smaller, you then pull that one, pull the end, and then cut. And as you can see, the again, the original tail from the magic ring is long enough that I can cut, leaving a shorter tail, like so. And you should have this little 5-petaled flower. And then to sew that, let me find where I left the needle here. I always do the shorter one first. Thread that onto your needle. Stick your needle down the middle of the flower. And then, like I said, because I started the row here, you can see there's kind of an awkward gap that isn't as smooth as the rest of it. So I like to stick my needle right in that gap so that I can cover it with the flower. If you did your end of the row here, you can put the flower here instead. It doesn't really matter, like I said. You can do it wherever you want, but that is just where I like to do it, just because it covers up the edge, which can be a bit annoying and it can sometimes ruin the overall look. And then again, just thread the next side, put it right through the middle, and then turn inside out. Tie it into a secure knot, 1 and then 2, cut like so, and then here you have a little Soot Sprite. And then obviously to turn it into a pin, you need to put the bottle cap in and crochet it close. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now if you've done the gaps, like I said before, it kind of closes in on itself a bit, which is irritating. So the way I can fit, it will fit, but it might be a bit awkward. The way I make it fit is you place the bottle cap in, and as you can see, it's kind of annoying and it looks like it won't fit. But then I get my crochet hook and I do this. I literally use it as a hook and I bring all of the sides up and over, work your way around the whole thing. And as you can see, this side is now caught along the edge, and then you keep doing that all the way around, basically. But I'm taking it out for now because I want to fill it first. And the way I do that, literally get a pen, trace around the outside on some cardboard, cut it out, fill up as many circles as you want to fill it completely, just so that it is level and you don't have the kind of indent at the back, it's solid, like this one. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. That's just a little extra thing that I like to do. And I use cardboard because it's light, so it doesn't affect the weight of the pin too much. Here I've got the filled bottle cap. I just used 3 sheets of cardboard. And as you can see now, it's level, so it's a lot nicer. So now we can do the technique I showed you a second ago. Place it in, grab your hook into the gaps. If you don't have gaps, you should be able to get it on so much easier because it doesn't really shrink at the edge. But if you make your way around doing this in all the holes, just realised that was not on camera because it kind of falls underneath it. You can see that it is actually the right size, it's just really awkward to get on, like so. Keep working. Oh, my hook is stuck. There we go. You can hear the squeaking of the cardboard that I'm pressing down. And we are all the way around. And as you can see, it does actually fit. So, to do the back, obviously, you're going to need the black again. I'm actually almost out of black. The needle, don't want to lose that. You're going to do another slip stitch. And then this is where we start decreasing. Obviously, if you've done the gaps like me, you should still have the same number of stitches that you started with. So obviously I did a row of 30 and then I did the half doubles and the chains. I should still have 30 stitches, just half of them are going to be half doubles and half of them are going to be chains. But you should still have the same amount of whatever multiple of 6 you ended up getting to. So here I'm going to place my hook into where the slip stitch is, because that's where we're going to start. I'm going to do a single, and then basically we're going to decrease down from whatever multiple of 6 you did. So for me, I'm on 30, so I now want to decrease to 24. And the way you decrease to 24 is, so I was on 5 lots of 6, and now I want 4 lots of 6. So I'm going to do 1 single, followed by another single, and when you get to, ooh, can't get my hook in, it's running away from me. When you get to a half double, you're going to do whatever stitch you need to do in the back loop only, so that it folds in on itself, because obviously we folded to the side and now we want to fold down again. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to do a decrease. So it's 3 and then a decrease. And then a decrease like that. And we go into the next stitch, which is the back loop only of a half double, to do a decrease. Now, if you're on 36 stitches, you'll be doing 4 singles, then a decrease. If you're on 24 and you're trying to get down to 18, you're going to do 2 singles and a decrease. It's just the multiples of 6s, like I said before. But so for me, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, and then a decrease. So again, 1, can be quite awkward to do on this one. 2, 3, followed by a decrease, and then whatever pattern you do, you repeat it 6 times, and then you should get back to the start. So once you've done your first decrease row, we're going to do the second decrease row. So for me, I've gone from 30 to 24, so I'm now trying to get down to 18, and the way to do that is to do 2 singles, then a decrease, because it's 3 lots of 6. But for this, you don't have to worry about doing anything in the back loop only. We're doing it in the regular stitches. So I'm just going to do 1, 2, and then the third one is a decrease. I'm going to do the invisible decrease on this one rather than the regular decrease that I did on the last row, because it's easier when you're not working into chains. So that's 3 stitches and then 4 5, 6, number 6 is a decrease, and so on until I get down to 18. And now that I've gone down to 18, I'm now going to go down to 12. And to do that, you're going to do one single, ooh, my hook fell out, one single followed by one decrease, and then repeat that 6 times. Now, when you get down to 12, that is going to be the last row you do. Do not go down to 6, and I'll explain why once I finish this row. So I'm now on 12. Apologies for all the cuts, by the way. I know I keep cutting away, but I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible because I know really long tutorials, they annoy me. So sorry about all the cuts. I know you keep pausing it, but once you get to 12, you do a slip stitch and then you cut, leaving a tail long enough to sew closed. And the reason you don't go down to 6 is because we want the back to be as flat as possible. If we went down to 6 and then closed, the back would kind of do a little dome shape. It wouldn't be completely flat. Whereas if we go down to 12 and then close, it will pull everything tight enough that it stays completely flat, or as flat as we can get it, basically. So once you've done the slip stitch and you've cut, get the needle. I don't know where my needle is. Here it is. And then thread your end. You can poke the ends inside there. And then to close, I like to do stick it through the front loop of every stitch. So through the front loop, through the front loop, through the front loop. That's number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then once you've done that, pull, and you can see it, oh it broke. That it closed. As you can see, I had to use a piece of white yarn because the black yarn I have keeps breaking. So I just attached a new piece at the end here. But it's literally exactly the same, except I am going to go back down and out and then through the same hole and tie a knot and then tuck it in, whereas you will just get the, if I tighten it a little bit more, like that, whereas you will just get the end and kind of go up a hole, go down a hole, and just keep kind of crisscrossing along, and then just cut it wherever you want to. Yeah, sorry, my black yarn is very fragile and it keeps breaking when I pull it too tight, which is very irritating actually. So I had to attach a piece of wire. Of course it worked on all of these ones, but the second I try and record a tutorial it breaks. And then I can just tuck the ends on the inside so that you can't see the white. Like so. Anyway, it works either way. And this is what you should have. And then obviously the last step is to just super glue a pin back to it, and then you have your own little Soot Sprite pin for your bag, and you can kind of pose the legs and the arms kind of how you want, if you want to bend them. And yeah, this is the tutorial. Thank you for watching. Please give me feedback. I know my video, the camera quality is awful and all that stuff, but I'm trying to make more tutorials and I want to improve. So if you could leave your feedback, whether I need to explain more on certain parts or talk less, that'd be really helpful so I can improve. Leave a like if you found it helpful. Tag me on social media if you make it. I want to see you guys, like what you guys make. I want to see all the different sizes, all the different bottle caps. I think that'd be really cute. And yeah, now you've got the tutorial, you can make your own little army of them, like I have here. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please like if you found it helpful, subscribe. I'm going to do more tutorials. I might do a tutorial for this Totoro can tab. If you have a lot of them, if you drink a lot of like Coke and Pepsi, you end up with can tabs rather than bottle caps. But you can make them into cute pins too. So I might do a tutorial for this little guy, keeping with the Studio Ghibli theme. So yeah, subscribe if you want to see that. Thank you and bye!